Chapter 1 Kabuliwala Section 1 One morning I was sitting in my room, writing my next novel, and little Minnie, my 5-year-old daughter, was playing nearby. It was early autumn, and the cool breeze that flowed through the open window felt refreshing. The light filtering through the leaves of the trees outside made soft patterns on the floor. It was the perfect environment to be lost in my writing. But Minnie, as usual, was her bubbly, chattering self.
"Father! Ramdayal the doorkeeper calls a crow a crow! He doesn't know anything, does he?"
she said with a laugh. Before I could respond, she went on with the relentless flow of her words.
"Father, do you know what Bola told me today? He said that elephants fly in the sky. Wouldn't that be funny if elephants flew like birds?"
Her imagination and innocent questions always amused me. I often wondered how she could continue talking without a break, as though the words had been stored up for days, waiting to pour out all at once. At times, her constant chatter became too much for me, especially when I was busy. But on that particular morning, her words were like music, light-hearted and joyful, filling the room with life. Just then, Minnie noticed a figure at the gate. She abruptly stopped mid-sentence, something that rarely happened. Her eyes widened in surprise, and her face lit up with excitement.
"Father! Father! Look, a Kabuliwala!"
she exclaimed. I looked out of the window and saw a tall man dressed in loose, rugged clothing, with a turban on his head and a large sack slung over his shoulder. He had a distinctive Afghan appearance, with a sturdy build, a thick beard, and a striking presence. He was calling out as he walked through the street,
"Kabuliwala dry fruits, almonds, raisins."
At first glance, Minnie was a little frightened of the imposing stranger, especially because of the bag he carried. She quickly retreated to the far corner of the room and peered at him cautiously from behind the window curtain. However, I could see that her curiosity had not waned. The Kabuliwala noticed Minnie's interest and smiled. He raised his hand in greeting, but Minnie remained hidden, staring at him with wide eyes. After a moment's hesitation, I called him in. He approached the house, his sandals slapping softly against the stone steps. As he entered, I found him to be a genial and kind-hearted man. He greeted me with respect, then sat down on the veranda, spreading out his sack of goods, raisins, almonds, dried apricots, and other delicacies from his homeland. He had come all the way from the mountainous regions of Afghanistan to sell his wares in the streets of Calcutta. Minnie was still shy and apprehensive, but the Kabuliwala's friendly smile soon won her over. With my encouragement, she came out from her hiding place and approached him cautiously. He called her
"Minnie Sahib,"
and this unusual title piqued her interest. As he opened his bag and took out a handful of almonds and raisins, offering them to her, her eyes lit up. But instead of taking them, Minnie asked him, in her own innocent way,
"Kabuliwala, what's in your bag? Do you have an elephant in there?"
The Kabuliwala laughed heartily, his laughter echoing through the courtyard. He had an infectious joy about him.
"No, little one,"
he replied with a twinkle in his eye.
"Not an elephant, but something much better. I have dry fruits and sweets from my land. Would you like some?"
From that day onwards, the Kabuliwala, whose real name was Ramat, became a regular visitor at our home. He would come almost every day, always bringing a small gift for Minnie, a handful of dry fruits or a sweet. In return, she would offer him her endless stream of questions and stories. They struck up an unlikely friendship, a bond formed between two people from very different worlds. Minnie with her innocent prattle, and Ramat, the Afghan trader far from his home and family, found solace in each other's company. Their interactions were always delightful to watch. Minnie would sit on the steps and eagerly wait for Ramat's visits. She had grown fond of him, and whenever she heard his call from the street, she would run to the gate, her small feet pattering on the ground.
Kabuli wala,
She would shout with excitement. One day, I asked Ramat about his family in Afghanistan. A shadow of sadness crossed his face as he spoke of his little daughter, who was about the same age as Minnie. He missed her deeply, and it became clear to me that in Minnie he saw a reflection of the child he had left behind. He never mentioned his wife, and I sensed that he had experienced hardship and loss in his life. One morning, however, as Ramat came to visit, something happened that changed the course of his life. There was a commotion in the street, and we soon learned that Ramat had been involved in a violent altercation. It appeared that a customer had refused to pay for the goods he had bought from Ramat, and in the heat of the argument, Ramat had struck the man with a knife. Ramat was arrested and sentenced to several years in prison for his crime. His visits to Minnie came to an abrupt end, and for a time she was bewildered by his sudden disappearance. She asked about him often in the first few days, but eventually, as children do, she moved on, her mind occupied with new games and friends. Section 2. Years passed, Minnie grew up, and the memories of her childhood friendship with the Kabuliwala began to fade. She was now a young woman, and preparations for her wedding were in full swing. The house was bustling with activity as we made arrangements for the ceremony. On the day of her wedding, amidst the flurry of last-minute preparations, I was informed that Ramat, the Kabuliwala, had been released from prison and had come to see me. At first I was taken aback. It had been years since I had last seen him, and I was unsure of what to say to him. He stood at the gate, looking much older and worn from his years of hardship. His once robust figure was now frail, but his eyes still held the same warmth and affection. I invited him in, and he hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. As he sat down, he asked about Minnie.
How is Minnie Sahib?
He inquired softly.
She's grown up now.
I replied, feeling a lump in my throat.
Today is her wedding day.
Ramat looked surprised. It was clear that in his mind, Minnie was still the little girl who had asked him questions about his homeland and his bag. He had not realized how much time had passed. After a moment of silence, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package of dry fruits.
I brought these for her,
he said, holding them out with a trembling hand. I took the package from him, feeling a surge of emotion. Seeing him like this, a man who had lost so much and was now far from his own family, stirred something deep within me. I felt an overwhelming sense of compassion for Ramat. In that moment, I thought of his daughter waiting for him in the distant mountains of Afghanistan. I imagined her face, similar to Minnie's, and I knew that Ramat longed to return to her. Without saying much, I handed him some money and urged him to go back to his homeland, to his family. Ramat's eyes filled with gratitude. He took the money but hesitated to leave.
Will I not see Minnie Sahib once before I go?
He asked quietly. I knew it was impossible for him to meet Minnie now, a young bride-to-be, but I understood his desire.
She's busy with the wedding preparations.
I explained gently.
But she will always remember you.
Ramat stood up slowly, bowing his head in acknowledgement. As he walked away, I watched him go, his figure gradually disappearing into the crowd. The Kabuliwala had left, but the memory of his kindness and the bond he had shared with Minnie would remain with us forever.